The revised Bloom's Taxonomy of Educational Objectives. Reporters Jandel, Clorado, and Czarina, Baylon. After 45 years since the publication of Bloom's Taxonomy, Lauren Anderson, Bloom's former students, and David Cartwell led a new group of experts to work together. The result is what we now call the revised taxonomy. Revised Bloom's taxonomy emphasizes students' learning outcomes through the use of refined terms. The revised taxonomy is a refreshed take on Bloom's taxonomy from 1956, which examined cognitive skills and learning behavior. We come now to the difference between the old and revised taxonomy. In old taxonomy, we only have one dimension. Under old taxonomy, we have the knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. In revised taxonomy, we have two dimensions, which is the cognitive dimension and the knowledge dimension. Under the cognitive dimension, we have remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. Under the knowledge dimension, we have factual, conceptual, procedural, and metacognitive. We come now to the differences between the old and the revised taxonomy. Levels or categories of thinking in old taxonomy were nouns, while in the revised taxonomy, they are verbs. The use of action words instead of nouns was done to highlight that thinking is an active process. For example, evaluate instead of evaluation, or analyze instead of analysis. Another difference, while the revised taxonomy remains to be hierarchical levels of increasing complexity, it is intended to be more flexible in that it allows the categories to overlap. For example, some action words in understand level, like explain, may appear to be more complex than the action word show in the apply level. However, when we look into the 6 levels from remember to create, we will still find that overall, the taxonomy proceeds in a hierarchical order. The knowledge level in old taxonomy was changed to remember in revised taxonomy. The change was made because knowledge does not refer to a cognitive or thinking level. Knowledge is the object of the thinking. Remember, which is in revised taxonomy, is more appropriate word for the first thinking level, which involves recalling and retrieving knowledge. The comprehension in old taxonomy level was changed to understand. Teachers are likely to use the word understand when referring to their work rather than comprehension. And now we will talk the revised taxonomy, which is we have the two dimension, the cognitive dimension and the knowledge dimension. We will talk first what is cognitive dimension and what is under the cognitive dimension. The cognitive process dimension, it represents a continuum of increasing cognitive complexity from remember to create. Anderson and Cartwell identified 19 specific cognitive processes that further clarify the bands of the 6 categories. The first level in cognitive dimension is remember. So here in remember, it is retrieving relevant knowledge from long-term memory. Under this, we have recognizing and recalling. The second level is understand. It is determining the meaning of instructional messages, including oral and written and graphic communication. Under understand, we have interpreting, exemplifying, classifying, summarizing, inferring, comparing, and explaining. The third level is apply. It is carrying out or using a procedure in given situation. Under this, we have executing and implementing. The fourth level is analyze. It is breaking material into its constituent parts and detecting how the parts relate to one another and to an overall structure or purpose. Under this, we have differentiating, organizing, and attributing. The fifth level was evaluate. It's making judgment based on criteria and standard. Under this, we have checking and critiquing. And the last level in the cognitive dimension is create. It is putting elements together to form a novel, coherent whole or make an original product. Under this, we have generating, planning, and producing. We come now to the knowledge dimension. Knowledge dimension represent a range from concrete, which is factual, to abstract, which is the metacognitive. Representation of the knowledge dimension as a number of discrete steps can be a bit misleading. For example, all procedural knowledge may not be more abstract than all conceptual knowledge, and metacognitive knowledge is a special case. In this model, metacognitive knowledge is a knowledge of one's own or cognition and about oneself in relation to various subject matters. Factual. It is the basic element that student must know. The knowledge of terminology and the knowledge of specific details and elements. The next one is conceptual. It is the interrelationships among the basic elements within a larger structure that enable them to function together. The knowledge of classifications and categories, the knowledge of principles and generalizations, and the knowledge of theories, models, and structures. Procedural knowledge. It is how to do something, methods of inquiry, and criteria of using skills, techniques, and methods. It is the knowledge of subject-specific skills and algorithms, subject-specific techniques and methods, and also the knowledge of criteria for determining when to use appropriate procedures. And the last one under the knowledge dimension is the metacognitive knowledge. It is the knowledge of cognition in general as well as awareness and knowledge of one's own cognition. So under this, we have the strategic knowledge, the knowledge about cognitive tasks, including contextual and conditional knowledge, and we have also the self-knowledge. So the revised taxonomy highlights the two dimension, which is the cognitive and the knowledge dimension. So the cognitive dimension includes the hierarchical order or the order levels of thinking. The thinking levels move from the simplest to the most complex, which is the levels are remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. In the knowledge dimension, it includes the four knowledge categories, which is the factual, conceptual, procedural, and metacognitive. The knowledge that teachers aim to teach. When we formulate or write a learning objective, the level of thinking is represented by the verb, while the knowledge dimension is represented by the noun. Example, in the end of the lesson, the learner will be able to explain the photosynthesis process. So explain is the action word which will fall under the second cognitive dimension. So understand and photosynthesis is the noun that will fall under procedural knowledge.
The practical guide in using the revised taxonomy. We have the cognitive dimension level. The first one is to remember or recalling information. By this level, sample action words are those recall, name, list, state, tell, reproduce, describe, locate, write, find, underline, and define. By this level, suggested activities, outputs, or outcomes, we have recitations, worksheets, definitions, fact charts, and lists. The second cognitive dimension level, we have understand or explaining information and concept. So this level, the sample action words are those explain, translate, interpret, discuss, describe, define, report, and predict. So this level suggested activities and outputs or outcomes. We have the story problems, drawing shows and tell summary, and paraphrasing. So we come now to the third cognitive dimension level. We have apply or using information in a new way. By this level, sample action words are those use, solve, implement, construct, practice, execute, demonstrate, and dramatize. By this level, suggested activities, outputs, or outcomes, we have presentation, role-playing, simulation, collection, model, scrapbook, and product. So we come now to the fourth cognitive dimension level. We have analyzed or distinguished different parts of a whole. By this level, the sample action words are those compare, distinguish, investigate, infer, contrast, separate, differentiate, and sequence. By this level, the suggestion activities, outputs, or outcomes, we have a chart, plan, questionnaire, spreadsheet, summary, and survey. The fifth cognitive dimension level, we have evaluate or defining a concept or idea. By this level, the sample action words are those assess, debate, defend, dispute, judge, appraise, check, decide, justify, and rate. By this level, the suggestion, activities, outputs, or outcomes, we have opinion, judgments, recommendations, report, self-evaluation, position paper, and critics. The last cognitive dimension level, we have create or creating something new. By this level, the sample action words are those change, design, formulate, improve, plan, purpose. By this level, the suggested activities, outputs, or outcomes, we have framework, model, story, multimedia, presentation, poem, haiku, song, and essay. The revised taxonomy and the frameworks that helps educators in the following ways. So number one, it provides educators with a common set of terms and level about learning outcomes and help in planning across subject matter and grade levels. Second, it helps in drafting of learning standards across level. The third one, it serves as a guide in evaluating the school curriculum objectives, activities, and assessment. And last, it guides the teacher from relating learning outcomes that tap higher order thinking skills.